I'm Jason Miles, and welcome to another episode of This is Revolution podcast. Thank you all for coming. Just a quick reminder, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and don't forget to click that notification bell so you'll be reminded whenever we go live. We're constantly doing cross streams with other channels and adding new shows. Just last night, we did another episode of our TIR Presents Movie Night Extravaganza, where Forrest and friends discussed the 70s classic, The Friends Connection. If you would like to further support the channel, for our patrons, we have the exclusive Champagne Room, where we have more zany, uncensored fun, and we also have our call-in segment to this show. You can call in, ask questions, comment on what we talk about in the first hour. And not only do you get champagne access, you also get access to our movie night. And this month, being it my birthday month, we are adding another fun movie night on my birthday, August 19th. All that being said, let's bring in the TIR news team. Coming in first, he is the man of the Mau Mau Hour. He is my homie, my co-host, my dog, my partner in crime and slime. He is the Keith Richards to my Mick Jagger. The other half of the Toxic Twins. Please welcome Mr. Pascal Robert.
Keith Richards to your Mick Jagger. Interesting. Peace and greetings to the chat. Peace and greetings to the audience. Peace and greetings, Jason Miles.
Oh, don't worry. I'm going to come up with a new one every week.
There are enough dynamic duos to make that happen.
And since we're talking about the Rolling Stones, he is the Ron Wood to Pascal's Keith Richards. He's everyone's favorite British history professor in the entire state of Missouri. Me, Jean Bajlan.
Oh, why do I have to be Ron Wood? Like, he looks like a grandma.
They all look like grandma.
They all look. He looks specifically like a grandma, but he does look like a grandma. I do have news from Kuba, by the way. He's having a fight with his webcam at the moment, so he's having a fight with his. It's resisting. I like your idea for a new dynamic duo every time. You know, you could be Laurel and Hardy, perhaps next time. Or I don't know. I can't or wrestling tag teams. That would be very topical for you.
Look, there's going to be tag team combinations. You guys aren't going to know what it's going to be because I'm a little loopy.
Starsky and Hutch.
Nope.
Starsky and Hutch.
Not going to be Starsky and Hutch. That's racist.
What would your tag team name be? I mean, you and Pascal would have a
the Toxic Twins.
Toxic Twins.
Mm-hmm.
Good Lord, I need a drink.
The non-cancelable combination.
The uncancelable, and me and Kuba can be the war crime. That's what we should do. The uncancelable and the what? Good Lord, like all that talk of champagne and cross streams. I really need to go to the bathroom now. Anyway.
Well, we forgot to bring in our final contestant. Coming all the way live from Harlem, New York. She is the disembodied voice of reason. Please welcome the one, the only, M. Tucson.
Hello, everyone. Special thank you to Jason for doxing me. Appreciate it. No one doxes like you do.
Look, first of all, it's a huge place. And because you're a person of color, there's a good chance someone will come to the wrong black woman.
Here's hoping. I would also like to give a shout out to the Leos. It is Leo season. Y'all are but there is a Leo that I'd like to give a shout out to. Not you, Jason. Infinite Content in the chat. Our good friend.
Is
in,
Leo?
in
Oh,
Philly.
wow.
Gotta love it.
Did not
You
know
know,
that.
you know who else is a Leo?
Ooh,
My brother, Dara Diablo, the wrestler.
we need him on the show.
We do need him on the show. I'm working hard to find a weekend where he can come on, because Jason was saying, like, get him on soon. You know, I was like, you know why he can't come on a Saturday, right? At the moment. He's like, no. It's like, it's because it's like wrestle season. He's like going all over the country doing, you know, touching men up in in car parks, and that's the life. Like people don't realize, like, wrestling, like if you're not like a huge wrestler, like it's like a massive commitment, because obviously you got all the gym, but then when you do shows, you're going to like every small town that you can imagine, because the big cities is not where you get your wrestle fans. You want to go to the small towns where it's like the wrestlers come to town. It's like, it's like the event of this decade for them. You'll
I
meet
want to
grandma.
see your brother talk to Pascal about wrestling alligators in Florida.
We coming for you, nigga.
Your brother wrestled alligators in Florida?
He did not wrestle. He's actually never been to Florida. He wants me to take him to. We were discussing him coming to visit, and he's like, well, yeah, Missouri doesn't sound like that great, but he'd like to go to.
I'll
He's
stay
like-
my ass at home. Missouri does not sound like fun. Wrestling, someone said wrestling's like being in a band. And I think what Gene is trying to get at is anytime you do anything in the entertainment industry and you're not famous, it sucks. And everyone looks at you like, why don't I know who you are? You must be a piece of shit. And that is what it feels like to be in the entertainment industry and not be famous.
Yeah, but at least in a band, you don't get touched up by big men.
So you would think.
That's true.
It's surprised how many people love the crack.
Whoa, Kuba here.
And apparently, Kuba has won the battle with the webcam / Jedi
Who
training.
is getting all
beard.
kinds of awards tonight? He's the white guy who's on CP time with the busted equipment.
He also has Kuba Cam coming through. You know how much everybody loves Kuba Cam.
His sound don't sound right.
He's the most job
His credit is all
having.
fucked up.
Yeah, he's the most job having broke equipment.
Kuba don't got a driver's license.
Job having broke equipment. Racial stereotype filling podcaster.
I mean, 18 plus Kuba Cam.
He's black for other reasons. He works for the government.
That's hilarious.
Please welcome everyone's favorite deep state Kuba. Oh shit!
I could hear all that.
That was the point.
I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. That actually really drove it home. So thank you. I feel like I've gotten my Maoist
Kuba
criticism in.
yearned for the accepting embrace of the darker chaps in the
Kuba smokes.
Sexy bedhead Kuba. Adults only Kuba Cam YouTube chat.
Kuba only fans. That's how we're gonna get to the next level. Kuba will sit down and read financial reports to you.
Yeah,
George Jefferson.
Hey, baby. Hey, girl. I know that you really want to know what inflation is like in Bangladesh. Are those bonds going to pay off? Is the central bank going to start printing rupees? I know you need to know, and that's what I've got for you, girl.
We need to make that happen. We do.
That actually could work.
Yeah, the Kuba report.
Right.
Oh my God! Scott McCallum says George Jones. If there was ever a white man that embodied every black stereotype I've ever read about, it's George Jones. God damn.
You guys are making me learn about a person.
He's a white country singer. That was just.
Oh my God! I remember him from
George
TV.
Jones, if I'm not mistaken, if it wasn't him, it was Tammy Wynette or both of them. They picked cotton.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Man, they picked God. They a special kind of Negro. Shit.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I was. I was doing a story about how I was jacked up when I was in law school. My first year law professor was a guy named I will not mention his name. He's a well-known torts professor, and I remember him talking about how he grew up in Texas picking cotton, growing up in a sharecropper. White guy. I was like, man, they had your white ass picking cotton.
Whenever
So-
you see white people, when you're black from a major city, whenever you see white people do certain kinds of manual labor, you get scared. I remember I had a job interview in Coos Bay, Oregon, and I saw white women cleaning the hotel. I was like, oh, this is bad. They sacrificed their own.
Yeah, there's gonna be some Midsommar shit.
Damn.
Jesus. You see, in
Oh,
Kurdistan,
I mean-
in Kurdistan, you know, we're all one feudal aristocrat and sharecropper. We do it to our own people.
So you think you're better than everybody?
Well,
And
yeah.
worse.
You know what?
We're,
You know,
and
that's-
worse.
That's the insanity of the Middle East right there. You simultaneously think you're better and worse than everyone.
That's true. That's true.
Of course, you're going to be crazy.
You eat a lot of
the
rice.
neuroses the children must grow up with.
Well, actually, today we have a new friend who, an Afghan family that moved, that is in Springfield now, and we had homemade Afghan yogurt and homemade Afghan bread and homemade Afghan stew today, which was pretty nice after the
I wouldn't
after the
trust.
cuisine on offer in Springfield. I would say like good halal like stew. I mean,
Afghan stew. What's up? Is it made with goat or lamb?
I think she's making it with beef, but they'd probably make it with lamb in Afghanistan. Middle East is definitely more of a lamb place, but lamb is expensive in America. It's really expensive. Like, it's hard to find. Like, I mean, there must be parts of the country where they eat lamb, but it's very strange to me that it's like something that you can't get in like Walmart local. You have to go to a
No,
butcher.
you gotta go to specialty places.
You gotta go to ethnic butchers.
Well, in Louisiana, there's just a places you can go to that sell exotic meats. I guess you would call it.
I mean, I don't know if lamb would
I mean, it's interesting that lamb is categorized as an exotic meat, though.
Rabbit.
Rabbit, I can understand.
Rabbit too. It's funny because like that they live in the forest. How are they exotic?
Yeah, but what's the demand quotient? What's the demand quotient for rabbit?
You would be surprised in the South.
Rabbit's actually pretty good.
But don't the people who eat rabbit in the South generally wouldn't they be folks who hunt it themselves?
No.
No.
I was on a rig. They wanted rabbit and frog legs once. And I was like, what is it? And they came in frozen. There's a big box of frozen fucking rabbits. And there's little bones in their ears. So when you get them, there's a little, oh man. And the frog has a little man ass on the back. It's fucked up, man.
And the best place to get rabbit, still Popeyes.
Good one.
Okay.
We're going in hot tonight.
We're coming in hot. Coming in hot.
We coming for you, nigga.
Sorry. That's just my new favorite drop. But anyway.
You know, that sounds like a
good
movie,
news.
right?
There's good news.
Mhm.
I finally, because Gene said, I think there's a way you can shift, because for the longest time I couldn't change what the show was categorized as on the audio podcast. It was always categorized as a music show. That's why I always tweet at Questlove.
We coming for you, nigga.
But I was
Don't
able
get
to
cocky
change.
with it.
I get a tap on my shoulder. But we were able to change it now, so now we're finally a political show. And
What? So we're listed on Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and everywhere as a political show?
As now we're finally a political show, so we won't be compared with, I don't know, Stevie Wonder's fucking podcast and then whoever else wants to talk about music.
Morris Dancing Weekly podcast.
So I'm excited to see what changes. But There is some news in Black Uhuru Nation that Jean Bajlan wanted to talk about. Or was it Kuba? Or was it G?
It was Kuba. Kuba's been
Oh,
following this.
Kuba's the Black Uhuru.
I don't know how this happened.
Former Defense Department guy who talks about the black people getting COINTELPRO by the FBI. Talk about stereotypes, baby.
Yeah, the cigarette hanging out his mouth. Said, God damn, they got my niggas.
But Kuba's actually a black guy. He's like white chicks. He's put on like he's got a white chick suit on.
I'm still deep state. It's just like I'm a black guy from Arlington, right? That puts on this outfit every day.
Oh.
It's like Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, exactly.
God damn it, it was Barry Gordy all along.
But the like Kuba, do you want to kind of fill us in, because the Uhuru Nation, there's been some FBI raids in Florida, which is where their central command is, in St. Petersburg, Florida, which is quite apt given the story. So
no Winter Palace though.
No Winter Palace, yeah. So what's the jazz with what's going on with them?
So this is on the one hand, it is exactly the same kind of story that takes place with black radical organizations since the 1960s. You have an outspoken group that's on, what I'd call the anti-systemic left, meaning not interested in electoralism, not necessarily, not granting legitimacy to existing power structures, which, for the record, I'm not taking a position on that. Neither for abolishing all existing power structures nor contra. Just like, going to leave it ambiguous. But groups like this have always been vulnerable to infiltration and surveillance. They're public facing, so it's not what could be called a fully clandestine or underground resistance, but that creates the conditions for counterintelligence organizations to monitor them, and when necessary to trump up possible pretexts for arrests and suppression. And even if ultimately prosecutions fail or charges are dropped, the disruption to the organization is usually fatal. In this case, what makes it distinctive for this moment is that the pretext was not some kind of violent agitation or direct action, but financial links with Russia. So this can be, and given the scrutiny that has also fallen on far-right organizations that are accused of being soft on Putin, being pro-Putin, repeating Putinist talking points, we're seeing how prevalent and how broadly that sort of treason accusation, that pretext can be applied. And it also shows that even the domestic agencies of the security apparatus, in this case the FBI, are in a way taking a position on the international matter, right? That they, together with the political leadership, have decided that this is the treason line.
I mean, it's kind of, I'd like to get Pascal's take on this, but it's very interesting in the sense that liberals have been going nuts over Russian infiltration, and even some people who have postured to the left as, and I'm not going to name names at this point, but people who have postured themselves as being, social democrats, democratic socialists, or what have you, have engaged in this kind of sort of Russia is behind all the social problems discourse, we're seeing what the outcome of that is. It's not just against, elements of the right that may or may not have received aid from or have financial links to Russia. It's also they're going to start attacking people on the left. And, the question really should be thought about. It's like, well, these groups may or may not have had links to Russia, but name me one mainstream American politician who does not have major financial links to a foreign power, including some foreign powers that have very dubious political records. This includes countries like Azerbaijan, countries like Turkey, countries like Saudi Arabia. So there's a whole history of politicians, but of course, in this particular moment, Russia is being, and again, I want to be emphasized here, I am definitely not a defender of Russia in the sense I think Russia is going to liberate the third world and this is a great anti-imperialist war. But domestically, the function of this war is being used to delegitimize certain segments of the political right and political left. Branko Macetek, Jacobin columnist, he put up a tweet imploring people to basically stop smearing and attacking and inventing sinister motives directed at other leftists who are critical towards the posture of the American government vis-a-vis Russia, vis-a-vis the Ukraine conflict. And I can't help but think that's a profoundly naive statement because what we have here is this conflict. The smearing is the point. The point is to make it so that you can have no nuanced opinion on this issue, and you're either for us or against us. It's a process of almost Schmittian-like political sorting, and Ukraine and the Ukraine war is being used as the vehicle to achieve this kind of polarization.
Well, I think what really demonstrates to me is that the bankruptcy of political discourse in American society is so obvious that the capacity is simply to have nuanced conversation about foreign policy related to countries that may be within the sphere of opposition to U.S. interests, we want to call them enemies or not, and simply not necessarily being a quote-unquote pawn or an acolyte of said country, but simply stating what their particular relationship is to certain geostrategic realities in this sphere relative to U.S. military presence, all of a sudden gets you canceled as being sympathetic to that other part, that other country, and it's absolutely absurd. And when I see this in the case of Uhuru, I think it's sad that they're getting caught up in this kind of COINTELPRO-esque kind of trap as being called, Russia pawns. But at the same time, I realize that, the left, in my opinion, is always going to be the biggest target of these types of actions. And when you speak about issues, be prepared to be faced with the opposition from the state when you're going to be coming about and having conversations about ideas that are not in line with the ruling class in this country. And
well, it was just a few years ago that Facebook got rid of a bunch of leftists and the World Socialist
website.
Mm-hmm. Wrote a little thing about it because I think a bunch of them, if not their whole page, got taken down. I lost my personal page after that and didn't have access to all my stuff for a while. It happened. I think people forget, but I mean, it definitely happened.
Well, and in some ways, in this climate, it wasn't that long ago when Russia was supposed to be a partner of the United States, when more investment, more international connections, more transatlantic, transpacific relationships that a person could cultivate, the better. The amount of globalization that the security services, the security apparatus in the United States is comfortable with has increased remarkably and suddenly. And relationships, receiving a donation, if you're an organization, or having a commercial relationship with someone in Russia or someone with China, would be thought of as a entrepreneurial achievement. But those relationships, if they continue, are now evidence of political crime.
Remember when there was a picture of Jill Stein at a banquet in the
Right, she
Soviet
went on
Union?
a junket. She went on a Moscow junket, and then people were
Yeah.
trying to say, "Oh, you see, she's working for Putin."
And it's
And
not to it's not to say that, you know, Russia doesn't attempt to influence politicians, because you live in a country where there is an unlimited amount of money that is allowed to be distributed. And don't be surprised that some of that money is coming from that, you know, like coming from a variety of different countries, including Russia. They would be foolish not to try and do that. That's what the Saudis do. That's what the Israelis do. That's what, like, nearly every country out there is in some way or another seeking to influence the politics of the United States. And in some cases, you know, these people just have, like, you know, politicians in this country are rich entrepreneurial people, so they have business interests in all over the world. So when you have, you know, the center of the global imperial system having a political system that is open to financial influence and persuasion, well, it's not just going to be large multinational corporations or wealthy American citizens. It's going to be foreign individuals. Rupert Murdoch comes to mind in that sense, and also foreign governments who do this. So the singling out of these, you know, the singling out of these groups really obfuscates a deeper issue with American politics, which is they're all in the money. Do you remember when they were giving money to the Clinton Foundation with the Saudis? Were they giving it because they believed in, you know, well, maybe it was for the pedophile ring, but, you know, but, you know, they were giving it because it's an influential person. Like, you would have to be an absolute idiot not to believe that was the case.
And similarly, if you look at even in the specific case of Russia, which is one of the countries that had perhaps the most ambivalent relationship with the United States before it became a public enemy, essentially every major political figure in the United States has engaged in some kind of work, either in partnership with Russia through some third organization, or has a business relationship, or has been to a think tank meeting, or some other kind of summit, or has other kinds of transactions. You can find, you know, Trump had Russia connections. Hunter Biden, of course, through Hunter Biden, the Biden family has Ukrainian, very deep Ukrainian and Chinese connections, and I wouldn't be surprised if there weren't like a $5,000 reimbursement for travel expenses to a conference in Moscow sometime. And when you look at the amount of money that this donation, this supposed Russian donation, consisted of for this organization, it really is a pittance compared to just the fire hose of cash that elites in every major globalized country are constantly shooting at each other.
Well, Toussaint, do you have anything to say about this Russian disinformation?
No, I just want to say I'm not a Putin simp. Don't accuse me of being one. I'll cut you. Don't come after my boys either. None of us are Putin simps.
Thank you very much.
However, Vladimir, I'm still waiting for my check.
Exactly. But it's kind of sad because, you know, they're picking on a group that just really can't fight back because, you know, everybody is so dirty to keep, you know, to keep this hysteria up and find someone to, let's say, blame and put all the, anger on. They just pick a group that is largely kind of marginal and defenseless and do them for chump change, rather than, like, they're not going to go after each other because they're not going to put Trump in jail, because there's a political cost to that. But so picking on some black people in St. Petersburg, Florida, led by a guy with a cool hat, is like totally fine to do. Yeah. He does have a cool hat, the leader of the
Omali Yeshitela.
yeah, it's a great hat.
Well, speaking of hats, Pascal,
Yes.
you wanted to discuss abortion.
Yes. It looks like the Democrats have found a gravy train that they're going to be able to ride all the way to the 22 midterm elections. And it's definitely not anything that has any kind of policy considerations that you or your friends or family would be interested in, unless you want to constantly talk about what the Supreme Court did last month. Basically, what we have going on is in Kansas, recently there was a bill that was put on the voting block for the midterm primary in Kansas that would have constitutionally given the legislature the capacity to more adversely affect the ability of women to have an abortion in that state. People thought that because of the overall very conservative nature of the state, that it would give a supreme advantage to the Republicans and that they would have come out and done very, very well. Well, surprise, surprise, over 1 million voters came out, which was twice as much as the amount of people that came out in the 2018 primary, 2020 primary, and there was roundly divided 58% to 41%. And what it caused is a recognition in the consensus of the Democratic Party that this abortion issue could be a hot button voting issue for us in the midterms, that people are so absolutely transfixed in their red hot heat at the Supreme Court decision and the way in which the court has caused Americans to risk their capacity to have access to abortion, that they might come out and support the Democrats in larger numbers than they would have normally in the midterms, particularly in the face of the dismal polling numbers that we're seeing coming out of Joseph Robinette Biden. So what is particularly fascinating in this moment is that the Democrats are positioning themselves to use this Supreme Court decision and all of the atmospherics around it as a vote turning out mechanism for people to come out and support them. Now the question becomes, when the Republicans are trying to use bread and butter issues like the coming inflationary problems, the fear of recession, and interest rates going up as the actual arbiter of what a quote unquote working class issues, what do we on the left say when the our quote our united front or our fellow liberal allies, I guess, our popular front allies, if you will, are using rapid kind of wedge issues to get out the vote, when the Republicans are the ones who are going to be talking about the material issues? Does this create some kind of conflict for us in our wheelhouse in terms of how we engage in this kind of politics? How does the left deal with this when this is going to be the mainstay of how Democrats actually go forward in how they plan to prosecute their election campaigns in the 2022 elections? I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts.
I actually wrote an article about this for Sublation magazine, and I think Pascal is correct. I think the Democratic Party is going to pin its hopes to the abortion issue as a mechanism to get the base out. How successful this is, I don't know, but certainly I think it is served as a wedge issue, and it's served as a potential counterweight to the terrible economic situation in the country. I don't ultimately believe that it will entirely cancel it out, but it may function, I would say, to get people who would perhaps stay at home to come out in the elections. I don't think it will change that many people's minds, but I think it will make people who are feeling disillusioned feel that it is a kind of requirement for them to come out to protect women's rights on this issue.
Well, what's fascinating also, Gene, is that the Republicans, smelling that this could be a problem for them, have intentionally, in any state where there's a tight Senate election for the Republicans, they've made sure to remove any ballot measurements that would put abortion issues that are contentious on the ballot at the same time as those midterm elections.
And so
I think it's. Oh, go ahead, Kuba.
if I can chip in, I was talking to my sister, who for me is my sounding board for respectable liberal opinion. And for her, the vote in Kansas was a great and remarkable thing. And it showed that there's hope, and that this, there's more sane people out there than you'd think. So I think that the victory in the referendum is going to resonate, and it's going to mobilize. It's going to motivate people who, like Gene said, might not otherwise have gone to the polls. I also think that when you compare the result with the party composition of Kansas, it turns out that there's very few pro-life Democrats, but there's some pro-choice Republicans out there. And my anxiety would be that this leads to a kind of suburban Republican women will save us strategy for Democratic campaigns in the midterms, which hasn't had a great track record.
Well, I would add to this, I think, given the absolute bungling, and this is, a deeper political point, given the bungling of the Democratic Party over the protection of abortion rights, the dependence on a very weak Supreme Court judgment, and of course the Democratic Party's complete unwillingness to consider the constitutional changes that it would be required to the expansion of the court, those kind of things, they're not willing to do that. I don't see I think that the left should seek to an alternative way to protect abortion. And this doesn't work everywhere in America, but where ballot initiatives exist and where that can be done, you can do this through ballot initiatives. And Kansas exactly shows that is possible. I will guarantee you will have people who are voting Republican, but will vote in favor of protecting abortion rights. When we look at, let's say, inverted commas, progressive ballot measures in so-called purple or red states, we tend to see they have fairly strong support. So it is entirely, honestly, in my opinion, a more effective strategy for protecting women's rights and abortion rights, if that is your objective. If you just want to use abortion as a mechanism to get more Democrats into power, that's a different thing. But if your objective is we need to protect women's rights to access to abortion as soon as possible, the ballot initiative does not, where it's possible, doesn't require us to wait for a Supreme Court justice to die, or to wait for a favorable balance of power in the Congress, which I don't think will ever come. It allows you to impose abortion through popular mandate. This is what was done in Ireland. And imposing that abortion by popular mandate, rather than relying on spurious legal, reasoning and the Harry Potter debate club, you are basically you're basically securing it in a way that is not only stronger, but it involves popular mobilization and allows the left to mobilize politically outside of the Democratic Party. It's totally fine, in my opinion, to where possible, to run on a Democratic Party ballot as a leftist or as a DSA candidate or what have you. There might be good reasons in certain states and certain conditions to vote for Democratic candidates, for sure. But if the left wants to engage in an independent popular politics, it has to rely on the people and build a coalition for these kind of things like abortion rights, but not just abortion rights, stopping right to work, stopping money in politics, all these we can use where possible a minimum wage. Yeah? We can use where possible ballot initiatives, political coalitions that are outside to secure concrete political gains. The problem always bitches about is it could never get it can't get a concrete political gain. Well, through the referendum measures, you can.
And I'd point out too that when you mobilize around an issue rather than around a party or around an ideology, what you'll discover is that there's a significant amount of people who share your policy consideration, but for reasons that are often social or cultural or psychological, hate the Democrats or hate socialism or have some aesthetic issue with the particular movement or party. And if you can disaggregate particular issues, individual issues, so that the parties don't own them, then it's possible to form broader coalitions in favor of that issue, and even potentially use that mobilization as a springboard for bringing people into a kind of socialist community or mindset. Now, there's limits, of course, to how far you can go on a particular issue, and you're going to be rubbing elbows with some strange people. But as Gene pointed out, in states where you have those referendum measures that can enshrine law, you can actually get a tangible win at the end of the day, unlike the endless carousel of horse race politics.
No, I mean, what Gene is basically eloquently putting forth is that local politics matter, and organizing around on-the-ground local political issues is not a bad strategy for the left that's been so out of power, and it creates wins. It creates winnable issues that can be taken on an issue-by-issue basis, on a candidate-by-candidate. I think that one of the best examples of implementing that kind of strategy is Kasama Sawan. I think that her candidacy, her politics, and the locality in which she focuses her politics, understanding its limitations but maximizing its output, is a sign that this is something that leftists should take seriously.
There is, unfortunately, one limitation, which is when you have a very small number of leftists, when you have a breakthrough like that, the momentum to go from local to state to federal is often irresistible, especially since there's a lot of worthy targets to take down, incumbent moderate Democrats as well as Republicans. And if you want durable power in a locality, if you're going to do more than win a referendum, but you're going to form durable government, then you need to stick around long enough to entrench your people and to convert the institutional and bureaucratic culture. That can be a problem. And that is one way that the left falls short of establishment Democrats and conservatives.
Toussaint, did you want to chime in?
I guess firstly, I'd like to say thanks to you guys for taking this issue seriously. I don't know if that's like super low bar or whatever, but I appreciate it being put in the mix, with all the other serious things that we discuss. All eyes have been on Kansas, and I hope it is an instructive moment for people. I don't know if it's going to turn out Dems in the midterms, though. I don't know.
I think so. I mean, all these elections are personality competitions, and a lot of it is based off fear. And if you've been watching politics outside of kind of shows like this and watch mainstream news, and even if you watch shows like this to a certain degree, it's kind of a lot of who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. So I think assuming that voters are that disillusioned. If you listened to the prognosticators in 2016, they were wrong. They definitely were wrong in 2020. So
Do you think this will create like a so it's very hard. It's been very hard for anyone, even very like milk toast liberals, to
Mhm.
get very worked up about Joe Biden, like very defensive about Joe Biden. It's been hard to defend it, right? And I think there's a kind of cycle with that, because in order to keep the Democratic coalition together, it's not just an abstract thing, but it's networks of social pressure, all those kind of things working together. And given the complete like dog's dinner of the Biden administration, even people who are
oh, did you?
Democratic Party
Oh,
have a hard time defending the Democratic Party. But with this issue of abortion, it strikes me that Democrats may try and use it as a mechanism to basically guilt people into voting Democrat.
well, think
Like
about
it's
the
good.
Trump. I mean, people. Our memory is so short now with elections. 2016. People I knew that were apolitical were literally knitting pussy hats because the guy that said grab him by the pussy became president. And there was a fear, there was a righteous fear that people had that we actually were going to have not just a fascist president, but an over the top sexist president. And, then you get the resurgence in people buying what's the Canadian lady's name, Kuba?
Margaret Atwood.
Thank you. Margaret Atwood novels.
There you
Y'all
go.
are crazy with that Atwood stuff, boy.
Yeah, I mean they were like gobbling up the TV series.
I mean, you had
like,
you had people dressing up like I can't even. What's it called again, Kuba?
Handmaids.
I almost said a Bride's Tale.
a Bride's Tale.
Big difference. Big.
Man, you're costing us all that cred. Thanks
Right.
a lot, man.
Down the drain. Down the drain.
Yeah.
Something
Thanks a
like-
lot, Jason.
Made in Manhattan.
I stopped watching Handmaid's Tale when they had it on the TV, but it was like there was a kind of like perverse enjoyment I think liberals were getting at, because there's something the bourgeoisie historically, like, this is a kind of crazy meta point, but like in the French Revolution, there was like a heroic phase of the bourgeois revolution, right, where like liberals were like fighting on the barricades, right? And like that has died down. Liberals are like a reactionary force these days. So any kind of cosplay where they can pretend that they're doing something heroic, whether it's like with the resistance fighting the Nazis, or like it's going to suddenly turn into like MSNBC liberals are just like, they just freaking love this because it allows them to like lop.
Let me make it weird. I think that you're right. I think that there is that angle, right? The vicarious heroism. But think about the sort of gender and sexual politics. If you're one of the anti-Gilead women, then you have cool black lesbian friends, and you're surrounded by a culture of sort of affirming feminist sisterhood, right? With the highest stakes. But you also have an eroticized, like, hyper-masculine Gilead, right? Like, they picked Joseph. Joseph Fiennes wasn't selected because he's gross, right? Like, he wasn't cast to be an agent of revulsion. No, like, that kind of untrammeled masculine dominance, precisely by being the inverse of the solidarity and sisterhood on the liberal side, with it's also right-thinking, supportive, domestic males, gets that frisson of like forbidden eroticism from the like hyper-masculine, very powerful, dominant reactionary.
So it's
And
kind of
so,
like how
for wine moms,
You definitely got weird with it.
well, it's
for
the
wine
same
moms, it's perfect.
it's the same reason the British fantasize like all the British alternative history is just about if the Nazis had won. So it's like, ooh, what if we had to live under the Nazi jackboot? Bad jackboot.
Oh,
I think that,
but yeah, it's such a nice, handsome Hugo Boss jackboot too.
yeah, exactly. But I think Kuba's onto something with some psychological pathologies there. All the wine mums. If you remember, I only watched the first season, but like they had like a brothel called the Jezebels.
Jezebel.
And
Yeah,
all the Jezebels
exactly.
were all the Jezebels were former New York Times journalists and sociology professors. There you go.
yeah.
Who remembers Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Someone talked about RBG, but who remembers the Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Gloria Allred, docs that came out, also kind of post-Trump as well. When I say post-Trump, like after he won. Like,
I do not.
it's foolish to think that this isn't going to be a huge hot button issue for passive voters and even non-voters to come out.
Well, it's also it's the best kind of wedge issue because there is a sort of practical imbalance in terms of who it affects, but it's amplified by cultural identification massively. So there's a lot of people who I think, if they sat down and thought about it, would have an objective interest on the other side of the issue, but they either hate conservatives or hate liberals so radically that they want to stick it to the other team.
Tucson, did you want to say anything about sticking it to the other team?
No hetero.
That's why one needs abortion.
Oh God!
You'd be surprised how many people love the crack.
Keeps the abortion free. Crack.
Pascal's like, this is out of hand. I don't want to get canceled.
So much goodwill has been wasted.
That's what you get when you get bedhead Kuba.
Yeah, Kuba got brave with his analysis of the psychological issues of wine mums.
That's right.
Well, Slavoj Žižek isn't going to be around forever.
That's true. We do need a.
Oh,
we do need.
God.
We do,
So you're gonna take his place? We're just gonna give you an 8
you're
ball.
gonna have to.
Fit
Get a
right
lot
in.
more hot
Hey.
dogs.
Eastern Europeans have got a lock on that position. It belongs to us, right? Eyes off it. Eyes off it.
I'm so mad I said a bride's.
A shark's tail. We have I don't know, something with broads, some kind of tail.
I just saw a bunch of white broads dressed like weird pilgrim nuns. Something about men.
Pilgrim broads.
We do have
Pilgrim
a
nutty
super chat.
broads. There's whining and praying and everything. Well, churn some butter, lady.
Whining and praying. Jesus.
Just a bunch of Edith Bunkers over there.
We do have a super chat from Autumn Leaves.
Oh, you're gonna have to read that one because I'm scared to read that live.
Sure. Autumn says the deep state is implying an obscure British actor called Strawn Rogers to be a fake body double for Joe Biden to stand in for him during various important public appearances. Get the word out.
Can you do the human beatbox?
Did I tell you I witnessed a rap battle?
Oh, tell us that you were like the beatbox champ of home.
I was just walking across campus and there was two guys like, I believe it was rapping about cars.
About
You call the
cars.
police?
I did not. I did not call the police.
They both sound like Gary Newman.
I should emphasize that they were I believe you call them Caucasians. So I didn't feel threatened by their rapping.
Were they yelling or were they
The
rapping?
rapping was actually very respectful.
Like
They found a lot of ways to rhyme Mister.
Like, what was it a battle for real? Like they were battling, or were they just yelling at each other? And it sounded, you're like, is that too black? Oh my goodness. It's too
They
white.
were like there was some people around and they were like standing in a circle.
Oh, and the heads were nodding like this and stuff like.
And
Oh,
yeah, like
called
I
his
mean
mom 9 kinds of a
I
whore.
I didn't need to stay around for it, so I decided to move rapidly towards my home.
So
You
who
should
won,
have-
Kia or Hyundai?
Oh, that's a big Springfield diss there. Kuba did a big Springfield diss right there. Well, oh my God, I'm
What
getting
is up
messed.
with Tucson? Look, we're gonna head off, but what is up with these bots that come in here and do the adult dating site? What is up with that?
They're responding to tonight. They're responding to Kuba's bedhead. Clear influence from Daniel Bessner. I guess you imitate. I guess. So yeah.
Like, is it when you do majority? Does it do that too?
Yes.
Word.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
This
They're
is-
everywhere. The sex bots are everywhere. We call it a Vlad attack sometimes because we think it's coming from Russia.
I've been taking out the sex messages in the comments as well.
I leave them in there because sometimes some shows don't have a lot of comments. And I'm like, someone like me, please.
However, the spam, which is peddling investment schemes that are clearly fraudulent, those are made in the USA.
My favorite is when you get a thread and it's someone goes, I made all this money on Johnny's crypto. And then someone goes, I made money on Johnny's crypto too. He's not lying. And then it's just a whole thing. That is my favorite.
That's
prosperity gospel right there.
Oh, dude.
My favorite is the comments about Kuba's flat tummy tea. They say it works. 20 comments in a row said it works.
Kuba's flat tummy tea?
Yep.
They picked up my name.
So people are they accusing Kuba of wearing a girdle?
No.
No, flat tummy tea is a new thing. It's a real thing.
It's clearly drugs.
It's perfect for your bridesmaids.
Every time I turn on YouTube, I get an advert for this stuff called it's like a liposuction, but called like freeze liposuction, where it's like we freeze you. They basically freeze your fat, crack it out. I'm like,
what are you gonna do with this later?
Break it with a hammer.
Fuck, you telling me I'm fat,
baby.
YouTube. You tell me I'm fat.
They found out you had 2 kids.
They did find out. Yeah, but that's true. 2 kids.
Just had 2 kids.
Well, I
have 2 kids and you're a
them.
supportive, loving partner.
Yeah, I need to. I really have a new profound understanding for the patriarchy after having 2 kids. But of course,
understanding that it's over.
Yeah, and understand that it's over. Exactly. And understanding that the patriarchy is over. But it was fun, Like I think, I'll keep telling myself it's fun. Yeah, that's the way.
Okay. Married guy.
All right. Well, we've been going for an hour. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today. Thank you, TIR News Crew. But this ain't over. Oh no, this news show ain't over. Kuba has even more exciting news stories for us. What are we going into the champagne room with, Kuba?
Well, we've got the NGO corporate complex. We've got monkeypox, sovereign debts, Taiwan, and general incelery.
I can also do readings from that higher education article.
Oh, Gene's gonna also read the wokest.
No, the white person who is so deeply hurt that despite being wokest, they were not given credit. They were redlined.
Gene will perform a reading from 2nd D'Angelo 3:14.
So we have to start doing. I know we do the Saturday free show, but I do see a lot of comments where people say they're too broke for the champagne room. So every so often we have to start doing free champagne rooms.
You know what we should do
Uh,
with free
as long as
champagne
you're
room?
providing the free champagne.
Yeah. No, with the free champagne room, we make it free for people who stick around for it live, but then we hide it again. So if you're lucky enough to jump on it when it's live, you get free champagne. But once it's over, it's behind the paywall.
Sounds
There
like
you
you're
go.
describing me in these streets, Gene.
You'd be surprised how many people love crack.
And on that note,
Mm.
Tucson.
Yes.
And on that note,
we are out.